All right, last we want to look at how to apply this games approach to your practice and position drills, specifically using the 80-20 rule, meaning 80% of tactical skill development and 20% technical. Some coaching and teaching examples. Again, I mentioned Eddie Reese, both tapering and training as an art. And then another great role model is Pat Summitt, former University of Tennessee women's basketball coach. There's a video of how she communicates at halftime of a championship game. So how does this work? The games approach is based on practice being as closely aligned as possible with what actually occurs in a game. So there's 3 ways we can do this in our application: shaping play, focusing play, enhancing play. And we want to look at designing skills and drills for all the different skill levels of our athletes. All right, now the first way to apply the games approach is shaping play. What we're going to do is we're going to redesign through small-sided games so that your athletes practice what is relevant to the game. A couple examples here. We change the rules to create the learning environment you want. So my high school coach, Gary Schott, wanted to be a pass-first team, so we would get points every time we had a successful pass to a teammate. Another one is I was really good at reaching in and fouling out when I was a young basketball player. So then he would give the other team 5 points every time I reached in, whether I fouled or not, to change that behavior. Number 2, alter the number of players to enhance active learning. As I mentioned before, soccer is great at this, doing small-sided games with different numbers. Another example in basketball is 2-on-1 fast break drill. Gino from UConn likes to do 6-on-5. Number 3, alter the size of playing area or the goal. 3-on-1 soccer attacking in a 15 by 15 meter box or grid, for example, just reducing the space so that you have to maximize the learning and the decision making. And 4th, modifying the scoring. Again, as I mentioned, that basketball example of stopping me from reaching in is 5 points were awarded to the other team whenever that happened. Second way to do this is to focus play. Again, you want to go ahead and prioritize and pick the one key element you want to accomplish or learn during those drills. So quality of practice versus quantity. We want to make sure we transfer what they've learned in practice to real games. So single skill focus, again, simple and sound that way. Again, questions by the coaches versus answers all the time. Make the athlete process, reflect, and clearly repeat the understanding of what you're asking them to do. Another one I love is a freeze rewind. So I never have used a whistle. I simply use a freeze command, and we stop in our tracks. And then this was great with ninth graders, is we would actually walk backwards, kind of rewind like a video to that key teaching moment and go through it and then go back to the movement. Last, to listen and watch. I can't overemphasize what I call mental reps, where again, the example I use is the quarterbacks that are not actually doing the rep are behind doing physical and mental without the ball, but having to make the decisions and do the footwork, the eye work you're asking them to do. Third way to apply games approach then is enhancing play. We want to provide quality challenges. So again, match the abilities, have healthy and safe competition. And this is what I call good versus good as much as you can. Situational periods. You want to make sure you're doing 80% of your practice decision making, then you've got to create those critical game decisions that you're asking them to do. In football, for example, third down is the most critical. So 80% of our practice situational would involve some type of third down situations. A game within a game. Just like we talked about with the shaping, we can change the point system to make sure we focus on one specific area, but you can create this competitive environment. Perfect plays. You can use this games approach for your conditioning. When I coached ninth grade, we didn't do any conditioning at the end of practice. But we kept our practices very efficient, those 5-minute periods. And then we actually did the perfect plays where we tried to get as many as we could in a certain period of time, and that became our conditioning. I used this in college as well. And then last, team games. Did this in college and with 9th grade, where on Wednesdays, middle of the week, we actually would do a game of tag at the end and get some conditioning in, but have fun. Great way to finish a practice. Key here, practice needs to be chopped into parts and emphasized by its priority and what is critical in games. So how do we apply this? Begin practice with a game. Again, those perfect plays. I did another one where we would do screen and score, see how many times we could score doing those perfect plays against the coaches. Redesign some of your drills to make them more game-like. That's as simple as it gets. And then small-sided games create flow, which is fun. Again, you can do fitness ideas like the tag. And then just as simple as keeping score creates a really competitive environment. Study your sport. Identify the tactical principles of your sport. What's the most important, what's the most critical for success, and then design drills to help your athletes grasp those principles. Again, it comes down to quality research, using current research, and focusing on teaching progressions versus schemes and plays. I would encourage you to try the freeze and rewind or replay, where you ask them questions versus giving them answers. Make them process it. Look at a big finish for every drill period and practice there too. Make time for your athletes to reflect. Again, I use the example of the cool down or post stretch where we would go ahead and have that discussion. Another thing I did from college all the way down to 9th grade is we actually did quizzes. They're really short and simple, but we did quizzes just like you would do assessments in school. And then last, create communication, quality communication. It's important in the games approach that you have efficient and effective cue words and you're all speaking the same language together. So one of the things we can do is learn what not to do. And again, don't just coach the way you were coached. There's some great experiences there you want to take away from them. But again, there's some things where the sport and the culture has evolved. So I would encourage you to take the good components of a traditional approach, but also look at new ways to change and evolve. Again, that traditional approach, we've all seen it, been part of it, where you just warm up, you do that some skill development drill work, but it's mindless technical stuff, long periods, so we just get bored and start to develop bad habits. Long scrimmages, again, not staying on schedule, and then the players know there's going to be a death march conditioning at the end with no skills or tactics involved. And then you finish it up with a long post-game speech. Again, you don't want your athletes or you as teachers to be bored, so we want to change that up. Just don't base your teaching on the only way you know from your experiences. Do your research and be a great teacher. As I've said many times, the key here is doing quality research of your sport so you learn what to do and evolve with your teaching approach. So again, here's a great example of the Seattle Seahawks NFL team with head football coach Pete Carroll doing a 7-minute video here on how they use the games approach. So here is the 10 steps they use at the Seahawks. Number 1, start with energy. Mentally commit to I'm all in. That's that focus. Number 2, being organized. It's crucial you have a detailed practice plan every day and your coaches go out and prepare the field or the gym for that practice session. Number 3, have a system. Again, routine is important to be consistent and be efficient with what you're doing. Have a practice system. Number 4, attention to details. It's as simple as just not having wasted time. So avoid those long talking lectures to one individual while the whole group is stopped during your practice time. You want to coach on the run, remember. Number 5, coach's attitude. We want to stay in a positive mindset. I talked about when you're giving feedback, tell the athletes what to do versus telling them what they're doing wrong. It's as simple as that. We're going to keep tempo fast. Again, I talked about going 5-minute periods so that it forces you to make sure you make simple and efficient communications, but again, prioritize your teaching. Number 7, effort. Hey, just critique a great effort first before we start to critique just performance. Number 8, they like to use music. I love this. It creates that game environment and distraction, but it's fun and it's real for the athletes. Great in today's culture. Number 9, practice fast and furious. Hey, less is more, as I mentioned before. So if you're doing a fast, efficient coaching on a run practice, now you can go ahead and have your athletes off their feet doing less than 2 hours of practice sessions. And 10, competition, creating that environment through shaping, focusing, and enhancing play. It creates fun, but it also gives that competitive game-like environment you want to create every day. So last workshop, just go back and redesign that daily practice plan you did and evolve using some of those application methods we talked about, and then do the same with your weekly snapshot. Remember, 80-20 rule now is we want to try to create 80% of our practice using tactical decision-making development and 20% technical. Become a great coach by being a great teacher. So here again is that daily plan. Go back and make some adjustments to using that games approach methods. And then last is your seasonal weekly plan. Same thing, evolve by applying games approach methods. Hopefully what we've done is broken down the basic principles of technical, tactical, and now a games approach so that you can be more efficient, a better teacher, but more importantly, evolve and improve your ability to coach and teach in your sport. Thanks.